is the module on breath support, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, didn't we already talk about this? Actually, no, we haven't talked about this. What we talked about was breathing. And the thing about breath support is it is related to breathing, but it's a little harder concept, which is why I've waited a little bit of time in your learning and in your learning music to talk about the subject. Now that you kind of have a grasp on how to learn the song and you're trying to practice the song, now you should have an idea as to some things that aren't working and maybe why, or maybe you don't know why. And if they aren't working and you don't know why, it's probably related to this subject. Breath support is kind of an anomaly in that a lot of people just really struggle with understanding the concept. And we talked about it a little bit yesterday when well, you won't know that this was yesterday, but we talked about it a little bit when we had the balloons and we blew them up and we were talking about the amount of air pressure in the lungs or in that balloon and how to prolong that or make that last longer. And that's directly related to breath support. And it is breath support, but I want to be very clear and very technical with you about how to make that happen and all the ways to make that happen. So it's kind of a complicated subject, and it takes singers a long time to grasp it and to make the muscles work in a way that's super efficient. And so if you get frustrated with this, please don't let that bother you, because I, for one, still work on my breath support. The body changes as you grow, as you age, all of those things. Maybe you lose some weight, maybe you gain some weight, whatever that could be a problem, or maybe you've had a surgery, or all kinds of things happen throughout our lives that make us have to re-look at the things that we do physically, and breath support is not different. And because of that, I'm always having to rethink breath support. Or sometimes I run across information that I go, oh wow, that is really a cool way to think about this concept. It is very sciencey and very medical in a lot of its terminology, so I'll try to keep it very simple. But the first word I want to introduce you to is the word appoggio. Now you have a slide in your PowerPoint presentation that defines this, but I'm going to tell you that it's from the Italian verb appoggiare, which means to lean on or to be in contact with or to lean against. And it is a way of talking about support. And it's a learned technique that involves slowing down that action of the diaphragm, which we talked about a little bit before. And this results in the increase of that breath cycle of exhalation and inhalation. And we want to slow down and increase that duration so that we can sing a long, efficient phrase. It involves controlling the action of the abdominal muscles and the thoracic cavity. It involves involving the abdominal wall, the transverse abdominis, the internal oblique, the external oblique, and the rectus abdominis, as well as the psoas muscle. Then this involves gaining better control over the breathing mechanism. All those things have to do with breathing through the training of the muscles, and enables the singer to pace their breath more efficiently. Now, if you're going, you just said a lot of really big words, lady, and I don't know. Remember, you have this particular slide to go back and look at and read, and then you're going to also find a slide that has arrows drawn to some anatomy that will give you where these muscles are. It's not important that you can diagram or memorize the name of the muscles, but it is important that you understand that these muscles all work in concert together to help you have more efficient breath. It's very important to note that appoggio requires some additional coordination and training, which is why we're talking about it now, because it is part of the natural breath process, but we're doing it in a way that's not necessarily natural. We are going to try to prolong it. We're going to try to put off exhalation as long as we can. So it's considered internationally among many, many, many thousands of voice teachers around the world, consider this way of talking about breath management that it is the most efficient form So we have the whole international classical singing community that supports this type of discussion about how to prolong your breath, or ergo exhalation, a phrase, a note, by slowing down that breath process. So during normal speaking, the rib cage collapses upon exhalation. So when I take a breath and I begin to talk, my rib cage, if I'm really thinking about it and concentrating and understanding the sensation of it, my rib cage begins to slowly contract. This allows air to pass through my folds and allows me to speak. But in singing, I don't want this to wait. I don't want it to come out immediately as soon as I begin to sing. If I collapse as soon as I begin to sing, then I'm vomiting air everywhere, and I then cannot control my phrases. I cannot control the amount of clarity that I need in my voice. So, Apaggio attempts to avoid this collapsing by retraining the posture of exhalation to be like inhalation in the rib and in the sternum, which is right here. This all is connected to the rib bones via cartilage, and it forms in the rib cage. The technique slows down the rising of the diaphragm. Remember, rest, inhalation, exhalation. We want to slow this process down so that we have a steady tone that's stronger and longer in its duration as we sing. So to achieve that elevated sternum posture, which we talked about before, raise those hands over the arm, over the head, bring it down, and watch how this sternum naturally rises. If I'm here, which I often am when I'm talking, I want to be here when I sing. I want to open this up. This will help me be in what is called the Garcia position. Manuel Garcia is one of the fathers of modern vocal pedagogy and science, and he taught that the Garcia position, his position for opening up the chest, should be like this. You face your palms outward, and you place one on top of the other on the sacrum. So right back here in this part of the back, you want to really open this up. So here we go. Can't get much more open in my chest than this. I'm going to drop my arms and try to keep my chest open. This encourages an opening within the chest wall and a raised sternum. So now you can look at you'll see a slide that gives you the review of the anatomy in the thoracic cavity, and you can see each of those pictures in that slide. So when Apaggio is applied correctly, the posture of breath retention can minimize subglottic pressure. Now remember, subglottal means below the glottis, below the vocal folds. And this glottis, at inspiration, that pressure is at its lowest level, and lung volume is at its highest. So the lowering of the diaphragm and widening of the lower rib causes the dimensions in the thoracic cavity to increase in both length, so in this way, and in width, in this way. And because it's incredibly elastic, the entire respiratory system stretches downwards and out, allowing for greater lung capacity. So once that stretch happens, we want to put that off as much as possible. We want to lean into that a little bit, push into that a bit, so that we can have this very active posture of inhalation going on, even though we're releasing air. That will give the singer much more stability. We also want to be sure that we're not shoving the diaphragm down to the floor, because we want the diaphragm to remain relaxed and be able to come up slowly. Anytime we start pushing against the diaphragm, it's more like going to the bathroom or having a baby. It becomes very tension-riddled here. And while we want some tension and some antagonistic tension, we don't want it to be something that stifles or gets us stuck in some way. So, once you begin to learn this, it's going to feel very foreign, very tight through here. But the deal is that it's just like wearing an earring or a ring for the first time. Eventually, it becomes part of you, and you don't notice it as much anymore as you did when you first learned it, and it will become second nature, and you will always begin to sing with that sensation and remain in that sensation without feeling overly distressed about it, because the muscle memory for it will increase. So, you won't see a lot of singers do this that are pop singers or country singers. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they don't need a lot of power or sustainability because they use a microphone. But it is also a way that they can get into trouble vocally, because if you support your sound and you support it correctly, the likelihood of having vocal nodes or a hemorrhage in the voice from over-singing and over-pressing is lessened, because you're putting the pressure here and not in the throat. Anytime you feel like you're singing from your throat, you need to stop and relax and rethink about the sensation of being here, not here. Now, if you're trying this for the very first time, you may feel as if you're not getting enough air and that you feel a little, the air feels stagnant. But if you really think about pushing those muscles upward as opposed to inward, you will have more air. You'll soon find that your air supply is indeed sufficient to complete your singing task. I will also say that this is a warning, and that is when you first start singing in this way, you can get lightheaded. We talked about that in a previous discussion as well. If you feel lightheaded, it's because you're using a lot more oxygen than you normally do, and it makes the brain blood supply full of oxygen. It makes the brain feel a little weird. So you'll want to, when you're practicing this for the first time, you'll want to have a chair close by in case you need to sit down. Again, if you begin to see stars or feel like there are stars, don't close your eyes, just sit down, take a few minutes to breathe as normally as you can to get through it. You may also be hyperventilating, so you want to be sure that you're not doing this quickly, but you're doing it slowly and methodically in much the same way as you would, say, a yoga breath. So there's a really great article for you to read, and it's on that next slide, so be sure that you put that link in and begin to read some more things on appoggio, or breath support. We're going to talk about it a little bit with my singers, and then we're going to do some demonstrations that I think will help you understand some things about appoggio and the neurological response that occurs. So we'll be in a discussion in just